Good morning and welcome to the PPPP podcast with the Honorable Abram George, the chairman of the Texas GOP, Texas Republican Party. I've spent a little bit of time with Abram, and we actually found out we went to the same college and we grew up in the same area, and it's been such an honor getting to know him. And with further ado, Abram, our chairman George, thank you so much for joining me and giving me this honor to interview you.
Well, I appreciate it. Please call me Abraham. The chairman George is weirding you out. Thanks for having me. This is awesome. I am glad to meet you and get to know you over the last few months, and you're doing an amazing job. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. You know, we both have a very similar background. We're both immigrants, but we both, I think, agree that this country has opened its doors to us and given us everything that we have. And the least that we could do is give back. And the way we give back is through service. And historically, I think a lot of immigrants have been, the identity politics have been strong-armed in being in the Democratic Party. Even though, my background is Iranian, your background is Indian. We were both at one point part of the same country. But Iranian Americans and Indian Americans share some of the most, the same values. Two of the most successful immigrant groups in the United States are actually, I think, Indian Americans, and Iranian Americans are right after them. And it's interesting because, Iranian Americans and Indian Americans both are very great business owners. Most of them run small businesses, are, very conservative, and the values of the Republican Party, small government, starting a business, making sure the government doesn't take all your money so you can spend your money the way you see fit, and family values are, aligned so much with the Republican Party. But I just think, a lot of Iranians, especially in California, have been fooled. And, now I think a lot of people are seeing the light, they're seeing the, and I love for us to kind of explore that and talk about that. And then I got a couple of organizations that I'm involved in, and love to, talk about that. And I had the blessing of running for Congress and doing something crazy last minute, and nobody even knew me. And so now I'm people are kind of getting to know me, and what's happening in Iran has actually been, the forefront of politics. So it's been a very humbling experience. But with further ado, Mr. Abram, why don't you tell us, your background, when you moved to Dallas, and how you got involved in politics?
Well, I want to talk to you about, like, you pretty much set this up in a way that I know it's a normal story. So I got into politics in 2007-8 timeframe, when Barack Obama was running, and I go to a church in Garland where some of the members were supporting him, and there was conversations about, it's a presidential race, so everybody talked about it, and they were saying, Obama is black and he's going to be the first black president, and nobody really talked about policy. Nobody really talked about why you should support one person over the other. So, a group of us, primarily small business owners, and I was running a small financial firm at that time, a couple of employees and me, and working 17 hours a day. And he talked about small business owners are great. Then he will say, you got to pay more taxes. And we're like, no, we're barely surviving. We, after payroll, a lot of times I don't get even half of the money that my employees make in a month. So I went to Dallas County Republican Party headquarters and asked, okay, tell me the difference between the Republicans and Democrats. And they basically gave me the rundown on, okay, this is what a Republican is, this is what a Democrat is. We are a free market, we are limited government, we want the government to stay out of our life, the whole deal. And I went back to my church and my friends and said, no, we're all Republicans, we're not Democrats, and we're going to support John McCain. Turned out it wasn't a big deal, and it wasn't much of a difference anyway. But that's behind us now, and so that's how I ended up in politics. And Pete Sessions, who was running at that time, he met me and he asked me if I would help him with the Indian Americans in Dallas area, and that's how I essentially become part of a volunteer group. Who then Tea Party happened. Kind of ended up there, and was part of that movement for a while. So being me and you, we kind of both grew up around the same area here in Carrollton, North Texas. I lived in Carrollton until 2011, from 96. So it was a pretty lengthy life. My basic childhood was there. Went to Collin College first, so did you. And went to UTD for a little bit, then went to
So did
UNT
I.
and finished there. So it's just so weird that we didn't meet during that time. But yeah, that was pretty much my path as well.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but we moved here in '95 in the middle of my senior year from California. And I joked that I've been a refugee twice in my life, once from Iran, once from California. We were the first wave of refugees in the early '90s, with the floods and the fires and the riots and, the earthquake. We just had enough and we moved here. And you said Carrollton. My first job when I moved to Dallas is I worked on Blockbuster Video in Carrollton on Trinity Mills and Midway.
No
that was
way.
my
I had a membership there.
yeah.
That's
You know,
crazy.
it's funny you say you have a membership there. As an employee, you had your employee number, which was also your membership number. My employee number was 248110, and that was my membership number. So I could always go to any Blockbuster and just tell them my membership number, and they could pull up my account.
This is the
And
one
it's so
next
sad
to
that Blockbuster's not around anymore, right?
I know. Such a shame though. This was the one next to the Albertsons.
Yes.
Oh man, I remember that. That's crazy. Yeah, it's a great. What a great story, though. I mean, coming to United States and starting from scratch with nothing and be able to build something, it only happens in the United States. I mean, nobody else is moving. Nobody's moving to any other country trying to do that. You don't go to Middle East for that. You don't go to India or Asia for that. No one's waiting in line to go to India. No one's waiting in line to go to Iran. But that's the beauty of the United States and be able to be part of the process and make something for yourself. Yeah.
And my day job, I actually help high net worth investors move to the U.S. Through the EB-5 program. I've been doing this 16 years. And I've been to India 5 or 6 times. I've been to Chandigarh, I've been to Delhi, Mumbai, so much history, by the way. I learned so much how much Iran and India have in common, how they're part of the same country, during my visits there. But I've helped a lot of Indian families move to the U.S. I've helped a lot of Chinese families, people from all over the world, Austrians, Italians, Germans, Canadians move to the U.S. And here's the crazy part. I watched your podcast this morning with Cass and Huddleston. I've become friends with him. And, it's so important. The education's so important. And what he's doing really is God's work to make sure that, the things that are just, trying, the enemies of the United States are trying to really, through education, focus on communism, focusing on Islamism, focusing on all the things that are anti-American to really brainwash the youth. And as a kid, when I grew up in Iran, I saw that happen, and now we're seeing that happening here in the U.S. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to be involved in the fight. And our education system is just so important. But let me tell you, the reason that U.S. I mean, there's something like 50 different countries that have a investment immigration program. When I first started 16 years ago, there was only 4 countries. It was the U.S., Canada, Australia, and the U.K. Today, even many Middle Eastern countries and all the European countries and Malta and Cyprus have this immigration program. The U.S. is the #1 choice, not because the U.S. passport is so attractive because you can go to a lot of countries, but it's because of education. The U.S. has the #1 universities. If you look at the top 10 universities in the world, I think eight of them are in the U.S. If you look at the top 50, something like 40 of them in the U.S. So education is such an important part. But even people from the Middle Eastern countries that are trying to come here and change the education system, they're moving here because of the Judeo-Christian education system.
Yes.
And yet they're coming here and they're trying to change that, and sometimes they don't even realize the reason our education system is so successful is because it's the old, Jesuit, Judeo-Christian education system. But slowly they're trying to chip away and try to change that. But that's the whole value proposition of the U.S. education system, and that's what Cass is doing, what you're helping him do at the forefront. It's so important, and people don't realize how important that is.
Yeah, Casson is an amazing guy. Him and a few others that are going to get into SBOE by end of November, and then it comes January. The SBOE, the State Board of Education of the State of Texas, is going to be entirely different. We're going to have real conservative members who will stand for what is right for the kids. Isn't that a concept, right? You're the state board of education, and you're more worried about other cultures than what's really important for the children. So, we are ranked pretty low in education, unfortunately, and a lot of that is,
In Texas, you mean?
Texas is, yeah, and a lot of that is because a lot of DEI things that get into it, CRT, and the sex education issues where it depends on the teacher. All of those things kind of comes together, and there's this chaos in schools now that takes away the real reason why the children are there, which is to learn math, learn history, learn science, and reading and writing, and be a productive member of the society. That part of the major reason why the kids are there, that kind of went away to put it to the side, and we have all of the small fights that taking over 70-80% of the time. So Caston's going to make a huge deal about it, and he's going to be great. Um, you're absolutely right. When I recently had a conversation with a candidate for a school board in North Texas. He is from India, and he called me and said, "Hey, we've never met, but would love to have your endorsement." And I said, "Okay, tell me your platform. What do you want to do?" And there's one thing he said that I appreciated, which was to lower taxes. But most candidates do say that. So I was like, okay, I believe you, maybe not, right? But really, what are the other things? You can't just run for one thing. I mean, unless you really truly believe that, that's all you care about, that's fine, but tell me anything else. So he moved on to talk about different things, and he said, we want to bring all the cultures together. We want to do this and that. And one thing that struck me really, and I said, no. He said, I want to bring Hindi as a language for children in our schools. And I said, why? What's the point of it? And he, being an Indian, he thought I would say, oh, that's great. And I said, well, why are you trying to build a language into a school curriculum that is really not a prominent language in the United States? And he said, well, this is part of the culture. And I said, no, the language in India is part of the culture. You're in the United States. The part of the culture here is English, not Hindi. And we had this huge argument for 10 minutes, and he finally, towards the end of it, he said, I'm guessing you're not going to endorse me. I'm like, no. In fact, I'm going to find who's running against you, talk to them, and endorse them. Because I don't want you bringing other cultures. And I'm very proud of who I am and my skin color and what my culture is. And I grew up in a Pentecostal preacher's family. My faith, everything, my family, everything is extremely important to me. But I chose to be here. I wasn't dragged here. You chose to be here. You came to United States, and you decided you wanted the culture, you wanted the education, you wanted the values that made America America. And you don't like it, you can always go back. I mean, all of these countries are still open. You are welcome to go back anytime, right? So you're here and you're building something, and if you don't even believe in the culture and the value that built the country, then why are you here? So I have this huge issue with that. And people say, well, you're afraid or ashamed of your culture. I'm like, no, I'm not. I still attend an Indian church. I still go to a lot of Indian events, and my family, I would say 99% of my family is still Indians. I mean, there are some mixed marriages here and there, but that's not normal. That's not the majority. But it's about the values of this country, what built this country. Are you able to take it and build on it? I think that's the problem we have. And that's something the kids need to understand, and schools needs to push. And when schools are pushing things like, you have to be ashamed of America's history, that's not good for us. That's not good for this nation for the next 250 years. That's bad for the culture. That's bad for our security as a nation. So that all kind of comes together. That's the fight we're in. So I'm glad you're in it as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I went to law school at Fordham in New York, I had a classmate of mine who was Jewish Ukrainian. She said I was racist and I was an Islamophobe. And I said, listen, everybody in my family is Muslim, right? I was born Muslim. I'm not an Islamophobe. I'm against an ideology that's backwards that wants to, change this country. And by the way, if you've seen some of the plans that are going on, what they want, they're not trying to just, listen, you mentioned Obama, what made you, get involved in politics. I read this amazing book by Dinesh D'Souza, and it was called The Roots of Obama's Rage. And he was excited that somebody that was African American was going to run for president, became president. So he started researching this book to write about what an amazing president Obama was going to be. And then in the midst of doing the research, he realized that Obama wasn't the candidate he was interested in. Wrote about all his rage and all his, father's ideas, that he hated colonialism, he hated the U.S. and the U.K. And through the research, he realized that Obama wasn't the person that he thought it was going to be, and he changed his tune. And it's the same thing. It's like it's not about the race. It's not about color, skin. It's not about where you're from. It's about ideology. And and the left unfortunately loves to use that. If your color of skin is this, you have to vote this color. No, I have a brain, and my brain tells me I'm pro business. I'm pro family values and everything that the Republican Party right now. And by the way, the parties change. There was a time the Democratic Party was different. There was a time the Republican Party is different. And the Democratic Party has just gone so far left. They've alienated so many people. And I think it's so important for people like me and you to, say, hey, we're not okay with all this stuff. And you're not going to strong arm us and pigeonhole us into a certain belief based on the color of our skin. You should listen to the content of our character, something that was very important to Martin Luther King, who, by the way, was a Republican. Look at the content of my character, not the color of my skin, and listen to what's important to me. And I think it's so important what you're doing. And by the way, we still, experience a little racism. We still experience a little, and it's not so much racism. It's like, listen, Casson knows because I went to East Texas during the campaign trail. And the first time I was there, everyone looked at me very suspiciously. And they're like, who's this Mamdani and why is he here? They looked at me angrily. And this is like, Upshur County, the most Republican county probably in the United States. By the time I went there 2 or 3 times and I spoke, and I told them during the thing, I said, please don't judge the book by its cover. Listen to what I have to say. And then by the time I left, they said, listen, we're not endorsing you, we're endorsing Jace. Well, we'd love for you to come back and run for state senate. You understand the water fight. You understand the fight of the Islamification of Texas. And we'd love to have you involved. And it's like, sometimes people are going to be judgmental. Everybody's judgmental.
Yeah. So I say this, and I'll tell people, like, I've seen racism in a different level in India. So I was born and raised in a state called Kerala. And Keralites consider themselves the higher class of everything. We're number one in education, number one in technology, number one in healthcare. The roads are clean. It's not messy like North India. It's a much cleaner place, and it's tropical. There's a lot of tourism there, and it's like Cancunish weather all the time. And
what's that island, Goa, that has a W? Is that?
Yeah, Goa is another one.
Goa,
it's very close to us, right? And there's a lot more Americans, Europeans walking around in the streets of Kerala. So English is not the first language, but almost everyone can speak or write or read. So it's a different. So when other people from other states come to Kerala, I've seen Keralites treat them pretty bad. See, I mean, growing up, I've seen it over and over again, and it was normal. Then I got here, then I started to see it. I'm like, oh, I'm on the other side now. So, but it's natural because people just don't know any better.
Right.
You grow up like that, you see that, and that's normal. I mean, I'm not trying to normalize racism. What I'm trying to say is, once people get to know somebody, they don't see the color anymore. They actually know the character. They actually know the person, right? The overall Democrat narrative of every minority should be a Democrat because white people are racist. It's pretty much the only campaign they got going on now.
Well, that and trying to get illegal aliens to vote to steal every election.
Right, and yeah, that's not working for them that well. That's why they need more people. And illegal aliens, even if they're not citizens, once they settle into a location and the census happens, and the census is based on the number of people, it's not based on the number of citizens. And that census is what drives the redistricting and the maps for congressional members, which means if California has 10 million new illegal aliens, they get more electoral votes, even though they're illegals. So there's this deeper fight that's going on, and the Republicans are saying the census should be based on citizenship, and it needs to be based on the resources that are coming based on the amount of resources that are going into the coffers in federal government. So there's just a deeper fight. This is the reason why people say, well, they're coming here to vote. Yes, eventually, but the immediate fight is depends on how many people live in a state. They get number of electoral votes. If 40, Texas gets 40, California gets more than that. But a bunch of people move to Texas, even if it's illegal aliens, we get more. But that's why California is always asking for more illegal aliens because they're leaving. The regular people are leaving California. Elon Musk left California. You did.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's so much, just the terms that the left uses are just so stupid, right? They, like nobody even bothers to think, like, when they were talking about net neutrality for Netflix, net neutrality was the exact opposite of neutrality. Net neutrality said small companies should subsidize this massive multi-billion-dollar company, and then they named, because they're so good at marketing, they named it net neutrality. It was anything but neutral. It was the exact opposite of neutrality. And then right now, this, like, listen, I dealt with this billionaire tax in Philadelphia when I was in development. It's the stupidest thing. Anything that changes hands, you have to pay 6%. And they call it the billionaire's tax. If you build a low-income apartment, and it's more than $1 million for the apartment, for 100 apartments, that's considered a millionaire tax. But those are low-income houses, so it's just such a misnomer. And the billionaire tax in California, it's so stupid for people to even articulate the meaning of that. There's 41 million people in the state of California.
Yeah.
There are only 200 billion is in the state of California. You're telling me you're writing a legislature, you're writing a law, you're writing the laws of the land for those 200 people and not for the 41 million people? Well, guess what? Those 200 million people, all of them are very mobile and they have a lot of resources. They're all going to leave. But it's a fake name. You're trying to make it palatable and say, oh, billionaires, I don't care about those 200 people, to alienate 41 million against those 200 people. And those 200 people are not going to pay those taxes. Those 41 million people are going to pay more and more and more and more and more taxes until, California turns like New York into a Mamdanistan.
Yeah, the New Yorkers who are leaving New York Manhattans and moving to Highland Parks and Florida, they're like, oh my God, why didn't I do this earlier? It's I've met a few of them recently at a fundraiser for the party, and they're like, Abraham, we knew that Texas was nice, but we had no idea the amount of freedom Texas has. And then a lot of them are not hardcore Republicans. They probably are now that they see what Texas is.
They're just pro-business. They're pro-business Democrats, really, what they are.
Yes.
But the Democratic Party has alienated them. I mean, somebody like Ken Griffin, people don't know. This guy, a lot of people don't know, this guy was kidnapped, and they were trying to kill him. They were trying to get money out of him. And now, Mamdani going outside of his, imagine, he probably has PTSD from people that kidnapped him and tried to kill him. And he talked his way out of it and paid, this is years ago when he first started his career. Now he's worth a couple $100 billion, and Mamdani's going outside of his office and alienating him. And how stupid is it? Listen, AOC did that with Amazon and lost at Amazon, lost 20,000 jobs. I lived in New York at the time, and so many developers, a friend of mine is actually a Bangladeshi developer in Queens, one of the largest developers in New York City, and he had actually funded AOC's campaign, and he lost so much money because all that opportunity was on land that Amazon was coming, what's under his. And he went from a supporter of her to realizing she just screwed up all of his businesses. And they said, by the way, they're like, with only 20,000 jobs at $200,000 a year come. Well, guess what? Somebody that's earning $200,000 in Queens, they're going to go to that bodega, they're going to spend money. it generates everybody. When economic activity goes up, it lifts everybody. And they're just, the Democrats, what I call the communists, they just don't get it. They don't understand it.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Elon Musk, look at Elon Musk. He was a hardcore Democrat. He was not a Republican. He still is in disalignment with some of the Republican policies. But he is hardcore far right guy now considered because he stopped giving them money. Same thing with Trump. President Trump gave money to Hillary Clinton in the past, right? And then he ran against her because they all
Hillary Clinton was at his wedding. She was at his wedding.
I mean, the Democrats of 40 years ago would be considered Republicans today because they were common sense Democrats. They said, okay, yeah, I am not for, transgenderism in the schools. They didn't care if transgenderism happened in workplace and all the other places, but they're like, well, no, kids needs to stay out of this. We need to keep that out. They were not for DEI. They were not for CRT. All of those came in by this AOC group, Bernie Sanders group, the socialists, not really Democrats. And they took over the party. And once they did, the Democrats can't control it anymore because Elon actually reposted some, I think it was like a cartoon or a figure, where the person standing in the middle, the Democrat Party keep going to the left, and the Republican Party kept moving to the middle. And they're now more aligned with the Republicans than Democrats. Just went nuts. So that's what's happening with. I mean, you ask any regular person, they're all like, "Yeah, I don't want to be a Democrat anymore because the party just left me, and they don't have any policies. They have no ideas how to make my life better, and they want to tax me out of my life basically at this point, and I can't afford it." We're having so much economic problems because the way the tax code is written, and it just need to be cleaned up. And small business owners, regular people who goes to work shouldn't be paying the amount of tax that it is happening now, which is one of the reasons I loved Elon when he went and did the Doge. And I wish he was there for a longer time and just cleaned up the entire government. But the government corruption always protects itself, and I'm very disappointed in that because I really hope that it actually happens a lot more than what it is today.
I mean, people don't realize how smart Elon is, but even forget his politics, forget whatever. Like as a business owner, someone's one of your big clients, you just shut up. Even if they do something you don't like, you just shut up, or you don't want to lose that revenue. Elon wrote a $10 billion tax check the other day. And by the way, if you're in California, 1.2, 1.4 billion of that would probably go to maybe even more, because let's say he's a 35% tax rate and he's paying 14% California. The state of California probably lost $5 billion just as tax revenue as Elon being a Californian. That's probably more than the bottom 10 million people in California that don't pay taxes. So Elon pays more taxes than 10 million Californians, and they lost that one person that would have paid that tax. Just a stupid business idea. Why would you alienate your biggest taxpayer in history?
Yeah. It's like a client, a business saying, I will keep all my $10 clients over the $10 billion client. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to use the tax as a business ideology. I mean, I'm against taxes overall, any tax in my opinion. I do think taxation is theft. I mean, we didn't used to have taxes. The country was not built on taxes at all.
Right. 1%, and if you earn over 250,000 back then in 1901, right, which is the equivalent of probably like $2 or $3 million today.
Yeah, we had a revolution based on taxes, and we dumped
on taxes on tea. Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Now we're okay with paying 40% tax on our income. It comes to like it's normalized over time, and once you grow up with paying so much tax, it's kind of like, oh, that's what you do. Like then you ask why, and everyone's like, I'm not sure, but that's what we do. It's what we always done, and the government never gives you a tax break.
Money back.
It never does.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, it's people don't realize the Constitution was written not to say what rights you have, to say what rights the government doesn't have. And when the government, anything that you give them, they never give back. And you give them more taxes, anything you voluntarily hand over to government as more rights to the government never gives back. And that's why it's so important for people to realize that, people make much better decisions with their own money instead of, it's like the billionaires. They earn billions of dollars and then they take peanuts of that and then create charities and give some of it back. Well, why not give them those billions through these tax programs and let people keep their own money so they could figure out how to spend their own money much better than some charity would or some government would, right?
Right. The government really, if the government worked, we wouldn't be in this mess. Every empire, every kingdom, every version of the government from the time of man till now have proven that government doesn't work. That's why we need to keep it as small as possible and as restrained as possible. The Democratic Party believes in government. They truly want bigger government. Unfortunately, some Republicans do too. And this is the fight that the party have to do to say, no, we're not bringing in more legislation to build more government. There are Republicans who thinks the government is okay as long as it's efficient. No, the government shouldn't be efficient. It shouldn't be existence. That's the way we should look at it. Say, okay, government shouldn't be controlling our life. We should be controlling the government. But that's the fight we are in today.
And that people don't think about it this way, but I think the Democratic Party is so racist because, listen, they're trying to shut down ICE, right? ICE isn't something that was created by Republicans. ICE was something that created by Congress, both houses, both chambers, right? And the federal government's job is not to write laws. The federal government's job under Department of Homeland Security and ICE is to enact those laws, those same laws that Congress wrote. So if Congress doesn't like ICE, they could, write legislation and get rid of it. But the Democrats are just telling people to break immigration laws. What country in the world are the people that write the laws are telling you to break those same laws that they're in charge of writing? I mean, the concept of it is so stupid. Those same politicians, they're allowed to write legislation that says, from down, we're going to let 10 million immigrants in every year and make those immigrants pay taxes, make them have all the rights. But no, they want illegal aliens that work for $2 an hour because that's their billionaire masters that they want. So it's like the racism that they want. It's like they don't want people to be immigrants like you and I come here illegally and be able to work. They want those people to be illegal and work for $2 an hour. Essentially, it's the new slavery. That's the racism of the Democratic Party, but no one talks about it. And they're like, oh, Republicans are racist. No, Democrats want slavery. They want illegal immigrants to come here and get slave labor. They don't want them to have rights. And the Democratic Party is actually the racist party, but no one sees it.
Yeah. The illegal immigration brings in about 3 different major slavery versions. That the one is the labor itself, right? So if a legal immigrant or legal alien who is here wants to work, let's just say mow the lawn, they will do it for $5 an hour, and a normal person will do it for $12, $15 an hour. So that's one, the labor slavery. The second one is the largest as we know, and that is the sex slavery. They're bringing in young children to the country so they can be sold for sex slavery, and that's part of the whole deal. And I don't know if you ever had a chance to watch. James O'Keefe had a movie that it's called The Line in the Sand. It's not a movie; it's actually a documentary, essentially, but it's very theatrical. It's mostly him going into Mexico, coming back as an illegal alien, paying the bounty, and he actually crossed the border and with the people, with hundreds of people, and he actually smuggled himself back into the United States. And he's a reporter. He's an amazing guy, a good friend of mine. And I watched the movie, and I'm like, you cannot walk away from that movie without crying, without shedding tears. It's that horrible. That's what the Democrat Party wants. These are kids, like 10-year-old kids, 8-year-old kids. It's a scene of a 8 or 9-year-old child standing at the border because she cannot find her brother and sister. She's just there in the middle of the night. And the James O'Keefe's team actually finds her, hands her over to the Border Patrol. And these are not staged. This is not written script, right? I mean, this true happened.
Life.
It's a real life. So, and that's what the Democratic Party wants. That's their major issue, the reason why they're pushing this. The third one is they also understand once they get here, they have no rights. They have no family. They're trying to build something for themselves, and they know there is no way the Republicans are going to give amnesty. There's no way. I mean, there are some who's talking about it, so they're going to push back, which means they're going to be loyal to the Democrat Party for life, because they're the ones who is pushing. Oh, we've got to help them, right? But even though they can and they won't, they make Republicans look really bad. Pretty much their strategy for their campaigns, and that's what they're doing. This is so plain and blatant. They have no issue doing it over and over again. If Democrats get in the White House again, I can promise you they will open up the borders again, and we'll have another flood of illegal immigration into our country. There's no question about it. They will do it.
Chairman, I'm going to ask you something a little controversial. So, I've been, in the AB5 space for many, many years, 16 years, and I deal with a lot of immigration attorneys, and I deal with a lot of H1B. And me, having a tech background, I have a lot of friends that came through H1B, and now they're green card holders or citizens. But, I tell people this, and they're shocked, and I want to hear your opinion on it. I tell them, you know who hates the H1B fraud that's going on in Frisco and North Texas more than anyone else? And they say, who? And I said, Indian Americans. And they're shocked. Like, what do you mean? I said, listen, I have a lot of Indian friends that I grew up with that are Americans. They're born here, and they see people that are committing. And by the way, there's people that are in H1B, and they're, smart people. And, I have my views of incentivizing students. But then there's people that are in one house, they're basically, they're coming here, work at Microsoft, and then they're creating their own businesses like a daycare, and then bringing in 75 other H1Bs and committing complete fraud, and and ripping off the taxpayer system. And guess who that makes look bad? That looks bad, law-abiding and Indian Americans like you or my friends. And when I tell people that hate the fraud that's going on more than anyone else is Indian Americans, people are shocked. But I'd love to hear your opinion on it.
Well, I was talking to somebody recently, and they asked me like, and he's an immigrant I think he's an immigrant from Croatia, and he's been here a very long time, probably 30, 40 years, and he went to high school here, all that. And he said, Abraham, I have never found a person who hates illegal immigration more than a legal immigrant.
Illegal immigrants, yes.
I said, you're right, because you know what the process.
We all have to follow the process, the rule.
You know what the process
and somebody's
is.
skipping in front of the line. It's like you're waiting, at the line of the grocery store. Someone skips the line. Of course, you're going to be upset.
Most Americans are like, yeah, that's okay, but all the illegal immigrants are like, no, that's not okay. So. I had Sarah Gonzalez is a close friend of mine. She recently has been very open and talking about it. And I watched a lot of her interviews and things. And I know people who are in H1B visa who came here who is good people. But H1B is not meant to be an immigration policy. It was supposed to be very limited for a very highly skilled workers that we cannot find in the United States. And it's not about, oh, let's bring in all the IT people here. That's not the case. If you cannot find a specific skill, a specific programmer, coder, whatever it is, then you can look around the world and say, okay, you can come in here for a couple of years. And that is a temporary visa. They should go back. What happens is the companies actually do process that as an immigration visa. They can do that. There is a provision for it. The idea of H1B was that, not as an immigration policy. What is happening now is even worse. Now we have people who are faking their interviews in India.
And even fake degrees, right? There's a whole farms that are building.
That's right. There's
degrees.
Farms in India that are cutting out degrees for people. And they will do the verification for them. And people are faking these interviews, and they're walking in here. They have no idea any of these things about any of these technology. And they come in, and there's like 10 people who knows, and the other 70 have no idea, but they are working for them. And it's turned into a nightmare, especially in Frisco. I've talked to many people in Frisco, and they're all like, man, I'm not against you, but dude, the Indians gotta go. I'm
I
like,
think
it's not,
it's
yeah,
so important. I think, like people don't understand. Like China is a huge country. There's 50 different languages that are spoken in China, and now they all speak Mandarin. India is a massive, like it's essentially a UN. There's so many different races, languages, backgrounds, and I think it's so important for people to understand. There's a huge difference between law-abiding H-1Bs, people that are committing H-1B fraud, and Indian Americans who were born here or grew up here who also hate that fraud. And unfortunately, like we have people that just group everyone together, and they just because your skin color, they just assume, oh, you're for this H-1B fraud that's going on. You're the biggest victim of it because it makes you look bad.
yeah. So I had someone actually. So we just did a campaign text last night or yesterday, and I had one person text me back. Did you come in H1B? And I said, no, I didn't. They said, what do you think about H1B? I said, I think H1B has a place, had a place, but I don't think it exists anymore because I know I'm very connected with young Republicans here in Texas. They're a group that is associated with the party as a whole. And there's a couple of really good programmers that I know. They're built stuff for the party. And they're telling me, hey, we can't find good jobs because they can get an H-1B person to come here for about $50,000 a year versus I'm asking 110 because it's worth 110. And they're like, yeah, we're not going to be able to hire you. Why would a company hire a person for $110,000 where you can actually get a fake H-1B person for 50 grand? They wouldn't do it. A company is I mean, I'm a capitalist. I look at it, I'm like, that makes sense for a corporation. So who failed here? It's not the corporation. It's the government who put this program together and allowing this fraud. So my ask at the convention is pass a resolution to end H-1B altogether and get it over with. We don't need it. We have plenty of kids who cannot find a job after
Job, yeah.
graduating from American universities. So
I mean, this is my biggest problem, and I talked about this during my campaign, and I think a lot of people don't understand. One of the biggest challenges that we have is that you have, and as a kid when I was in Iran, I dealt with this. All the, you have the lefties, the communists are who put the Islamists in power in Iran. People don't know that. And as soon as the Islamists came in power, they killed all the communists, and then they exiled, and now, they're over here
yeah,
lobbying the U.S. government trying to get back in
yeah,
power, right? Now, that is happening right now. There's the Democratic Socialists of America. They help elect Mamdani. And
right.
they're a bunch of really smart kids, by the way, that all have liberal arts degrees. They're very well spoken. They're very good with social media, but they can't get a job because they can get a job $30,000 a year working at a restaurant, but their degree that they chose because the education system failed them and told them to go get a liberal arts degree. Or in Mamdani's case, he paid $71,000 a year tuition to get a degree in African studies. He grew up
Yeah.
in Africa. He didn't need to study it. It's just stupid, right? But we need these STEM degrees, right? So people from these countries, by the way, some of them with fake degrees are getting $200,000 a year jobs, and now our students who have $200,000 in student debt are getting $30,000 jobs. So, and that job should be belonging to the stupid kid that went and got the liberal arts degree. But unfortunately, it's going to the STEM degree, whether it's a real degree or a fake degree, and then that person now becomes a communist and then shows up at the pro-Palestine rallies and wants to go kill the CEO of United Health. It all starts right there. H-1B is such a problem, not just because of the problems we see on the surface, but if you dig in, it's costing our youths jobs, and that's making our youth become so far lefty, and then they have purple hair and they can't get a job. They have to go work at Starbucks. But I promise you, some of those lefty kids with the purple hair are a lot more computer savvy than the guy with the fake degree from,
100%.
and it's not the graduate from IIT, the school that's harder to get in than Harvard, because I have friends that went there. It's like the most prestigious school in the world. But it's like somebody with a fake degree that's coming here that doesn't have those skills, and they're just cheating.
India's got more than 1 billion people. IIT probably have admission capacity of less than 2,000.
Less than
on a
Harvard,
given
yeah.
year, right? I mean, it's not every Indian who has a degree is an IIT guy. I mean, IIT is harder
Listen,
to get in than
those
Harvard.
IIT guys, I went to business school with
They're really
Harvard.
good.
It was IIT. They're just geniuses. I mean, like
They're
literally.
good, yeah. But this perception of, oh, everyone's from IIT. No, it's not true. It's like saying everyone's graduated an engineering degree in the United States is from MIT. It's not true. So, and then and the worst part on this whole H1B is there are people who's never gone to college that are getting H1B visas because they can fake an interview using webcams and all of that stuff. So that's what's happening. And then a lot of times they're not really interviewed because the people who are got here on H1B, probably on a regular real visa, see an opportunity to make money, and which is fraud, just bringing in people to do all of the work. And there, I was told recently that what they're really doing is bringing in all these people, converting them to regular visas. Over time, it's an immigration fraud. What they're really doing is taking the same amount of work that someone's supposed to do, and they're offshoring it to India. And they're doing the work, and the people who are actually here in H1B are not working.
They're starting their own businesses, and then they're bringing other
Right.
H1Bs.
Yeah, it's so crazy how many layers of fraud happens in this H1B,
In this H1B, yeah.
visa program.
And by the way, the intentions of it was good. Listen, I have a STEM degree. I went and got a computer science degree from UTD. But I think the way to really fix this, and by the way, there's another problem. We have $1.7 trillion in student loan debt. If you break that down, only like 400 billion of it is from universities. The other 1.3, 1.4 billion is from Paul Mitchell Haircut Academy or whatever vocational schools. And by the way, nothing wrong with vocational schools, but vocational schools should not cost 30,000 a year for a job that pays 30,000 a year, right? So there's a lot of the student loan that the taxpayer is on the hook for, but then even the other 400 billion that's actual universities. Majority of that is like, why am I paying for somebody like Mamdani to go get a degree in African studies? I should only pay for STEM degrees that the country needs. So the way to really fix it is completely stop giving student loans, only student loans for STEM degrees, and that'll fix all those problems. But we got to get buy-in from.
Yeah, I got a 17-year-old daughter, and she's trying to figure out what she wants to do with her life. And recently, a couple of days ago, she called me and said, "Dad, I think I'm going to go to college." And I said, "That makes me very happy." I went to college.
I did the same thing. I went to college.
Yeah.
I was a lost 17-year-old, and I was like, "That's where I'm going to go."
And she's super smart, and she's going to probably get a full ride to any university in Texas. So I said, "You sure you can still go to UT? That's one of the other options you got." She's like, "No, I want to start a business. I want to be home and go get some accounting background so I can actually run the books. That's pretty much the only thing I want to know. Marketing I can pick up online. I can pick up the rest of the stuff online. I just really need to understand how to run the books." And I said, "I can teach you. I mean, I've been doing it for almost 30 years now, but yeah, go to college, get that degree for a year or something, run the business for 5-10 years. Then if you want to go pick up a law degree or a MBA, whatever, you can go do that. You don't have to be in debt of $200,000 by when you are 22 years old. That is so stupid. But the culture built it that way, that they have to do that. And I still told her, hey, if you're going to get a full ride, go for it, to go to any university, which I'm sure she will. But she changed her mind and said, "No, I want to build something for myself. By 25, I want to be able to be saying, I've made $1 million. I said, "Go for it. It's up to you, whatever you want to do." So I think there's a shift in our younger generation now. They're looking at it as, why am I picking up a couple $100,000 worth of trouble when I have no idea if I'm going to get a job afterwards? So, that shift is good. That's good for us, for the nation.
I have a friend of mine who owns a car dealership, and he told me that it's sad that as an H1B you get a subsidized car rate for a car loan, like 5% for some program that's available. But if you're brand new graduate, American graduate, your rate's more like 10%. So it's like, why are we treating people better than our own citizens? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, we got a lot to do. And ending H1B is going to be a priority for us in the Republican side, yeah.
So I want to shift a little bit to a couple different organizations that I'm involved in. And, when I ran for Congress, I didn't have any, it was my first time running for politics. I just jumped in and signed up the day that the filing was due. Aaron Harris told me, he's like, "Are you in Austin?" I said, "No." He goes, "Well, you got 4 hours before the deadline. You better move." So I literally jumped in the car and then drove to Austin and signed up. But the goal was really to get involved and make a difference. And I've been kind of below the radar and haven't really been involved as you have. And I do want to get involved. And with this whole thing going on with Iran, it's really, a lot of Iranians are on the edge. And we had the record number of people show up to CPAC. A lot of Iranians, something like 1 or 2,000 Iranians, which probably 4 weeks before CPAC didn't even know what CPAC was, showed up and made a huge showing and definitely got the attention of CPAC and the Republican Party. And a lot of Iranians, historically, they vote Democrat. Now they've changed because what President Trump has done and what Israel has done for the Iranian people. The only no Muslim country came to the help after 45,000 people got slaughtered, but Israel and the United States did. So there's a lot of very motivated Iranians. And I started this organization, this called Iranian American Republican Council of Texas Chapter. The original organization started in California in 1988. The first member was the Honorable Ronald Reagan. And this organization's been going in California, and I started the Texas chapter. And my goal under this organization is to register as many Iranian Americans and getting them out to the polls. And then also have civic education, because Iranians, like still today, they call me, they're like, "Where do I go vote for you?" I'm like, primary was March 3rd, They don't vote in the primaries. The statistics is that Iranian Americans, and by the way, 200,000 Iranian Americans that are citizens in Texas, 2 million Iranian Americans that are citizens in the United States. It's a big powerhouse. And by the way, there's more Indian Americans. And by the way, Iranian Americans, Indian Americans are very similar. And business-friendly, family-oriented, conservative generally, right? So my goal is to get them involved, have civic education, get them registered, and I really appreciate all of the help and input that I can get from the state. But we can move elections. Like if I get 200,000 Iranian Americans to vote for Ken Paxton, we can make sure he's in the Senate. If I get 200,000 Iranian Americans, even 20% of them to show up, we can make a huge impact. And so as someone who ran for office, I think this is the way that I can contribute the most as someone who's benefited from the United States to give back. And then the other one is the Islamic Republic has these very sophisticated lobby organizations, and there's billionaires that are involved in funding them. And they're like, there's a sitting congresswoman who, by the way, sent me a cease and desist, who is trying to impeach the sitting Secretary of State in the middle of a conflict. And she's trying to enact the 25th Amendment against President Trump, and it just happens to be her family's from Iran. I mean, like imagine if you're a German Nazi in 1944 and you were trying to overthrow FDR back then. It's like it's crazy, and there's lobbies that are funding this. So that's what I'm getting focused on. But tell us, what message do you have for Iranian Americans? Because only 4% of them vote. Maybe 8% if they, during presidential, they don't vote in the primaries, they don't vote in the runoff. Just give me a best spiel and why it's so important for them to show up and vote.
Well, there's two things I always tell an immigrant group. I mean, even if you're born and raised here, like there's a lot of Iranians who were born and raised here. Like my kids are born and raised here. They're technically Indians, but they're Americans. I tell them all one thing, and that is this country, when you knocked on the door, gave you an opportunity to come inside and to flourish economically, spiritually, family-wise. And this is the nation that you decided you want to live. This is the nation you decided you want to build a life for yourself. And you owe it. You owe a lot to this country, the values, and not showing up to elections and supporting the values is, in my opinion, is very disloyal. So, I did that for many years. I've never cared about politics and never cared about elections. It wasn't a thing for me, and I was there making money. But once you realize what's at stake, you gotta be nuts if you don't show up. I mean, you have to show up to elect the right person. And the fact that Democrats are out there pushing for, labor slavery, pushing for sex slavery, they're showing their cards, be able to read it and say, hey, this group is not on our country, on our side of our nation. This is not what we wanted. When we came here, this is not what we were expecting. And then just give back, be productive citizens of the nation, and which most of them are. I would say a good amount of immigrants are. Very few are on the other side. So the whole point is, you owe it to this nation to show up and do the work, show up and be active, and show up and build it even better than where you found it. So, and it's not like I'm not trying to be, be extra patriotic and have 10 flags around your house. If you want to do it, by all means do it. But the
Just
idea is,
basic things.
it's a very basic thing. You only have to show up a couple times a year. You have a primary, runoff, and a general, right? That's it. That's all you have. 3 times a year. It's not a lot to ask for anybody in the United States. Almost everyone's got good cars. You can show up to. I mean, elections here are so easy. It's not like in India where you had to stand in line for 7 hours before you can cast a
And
ballot.
put your thumbprint in it.
Thumbprint in, and they do the whole deal. And it's only one day. Elections here are so easy because we have early voting.
Early
We have
voting,
all of
yeah.
this. Yeah, and not to show up and be part of the process and support real candidates who are fighting for you. It's very disloyal to the nation, to the idea of this nation. So, and I think the immigrants have more of a obligation to be extra loyal. That's my message always to people. It's like, hey, why are you not doing that? This country gave you so much more than what you can even imagine. So why are you not doing that? That's always been my messaging.
And I think, people that were born here, they go to school and they have a civic lesson, but people that maybe become, naturalized citizens like myself, maybe don't have, and I went to school here, so I did get that, but they don't, but the value proposition is this country gave you a citizenship. And in return, it asks you for 2 things. It didn't ask you for your heart and soul and, your firstborn. You have 2 civic duties. One, to serve on a jury and, do your civic duty, serve on a jury. 2 is vote. Those are the only 2 things they ask you to do when you become a citizen. And I think a lot of people just don't realize that that's the value proposition. In exchange for a citizenship, you owe your community to be on a jury and to vote. And a lot of Americans, especially Iranians, are not doing that.
Yeah, we have. I mean, and that goes for like regular Americans as well. I saw a study recently that evangelical church-going members, only 51% is registered, and only 50 out of the 51%, only 30% shows up. I'm not. Most people are comfortable with their life. I get it. That's why they don't want to show up, but we're losing our freedoms a little bit at a time. It's not happening over one day, because if that happens, everyone will be like, no, we're not doing that. But if it happens over 20 years, you don't even recognize it, because by then the next generation comes, and a lot of things change in over 20-25 years, and that's what they're doing. They're true progressives. When they call themselves progressives, they're really saying, they're telling you what it is. They're progressively destroying this country, eventually, little bit at a time. And the Republicans, the regular people, Americans have to stand up to them. And that's the ask. It's a simple ask. It's not hard.
I mean, the Iranians, they show up to these rallies. They all, take time. They go out and take the U.S. flags and the Israeli flags and Iranian flags. But that doesn't really change anything. And a lot of Iranians, unfortunately, this new trend is they go sign up these petitions. Petition to deport this person, petition to deport that person, petition. And I'm like, listen, this is a change.org petition. Do you know who's behind it? It's Bill Gates, Reid Hoffman, and the guy from Virgin, Richard Branson. These are the 3 most hardcore Democrats. They're just collecting your information. And by the way, there's no
action.
There's no action. It's just like, oh, this is a nice to have. That doesn't accomplish anything. Join an organization like my organization. Join whatever civic organization. Get out there. Get involved in local politics. It all starts in the local politics. And if you don't get involved, and then President Trump loses the midterms, or the Republicans lose the midterms, and then the Democrats come back in charge and try to hand nukes to Iran, what are you going to do then? Like, you got to get involved. And then the 2 things I think the reasons why they don't get involved. One, they've grown up in a country where elections were always cheated, and they just think elections are fraud. And two, they're like, oh, we're in Texas, everyone's going to vote Republican, so who cares? But it doesn't matter. You have to get involved, and it's so important. And I got a job to do. Between now and May 26th, and more important, between now and November, I got to get as many Iranian Americans and also Indian Americans. You know, they all want the same things. Register and get them out to the polls, get them involved in the civic process. And if I feel like if they're not voting, they're not fulfilling their duty as Americans.
I agree with you. I mean, there's so much at stake to not be involved at this point in our life. It will change the trajectory of our nation if we don't get involved and show up for the right people.
Well, Chairman George, any final thoughts? Anything else that you want the audience, or any message you have to Iranian Americans or people in general? And I know you have an election coming up, and I'm hoping that we get you as the chairman for, is it a 2-year term?
It's a 2-year term. Yeah, my term ends at the next convention. I got to run for re-election. I'm going to do that for one more term. The main thing that's happening in Texas now, we had 5 new congressional districts. We've drawn the maps for, and some people.
I ran for one of them.
That's right. Some people will say that's gerrymandering. Not really. Look at the number of the amount of people showed up for President Trump, and the correlation we have with the maps is very close. Illinois Trump got 42%, and they have 3 congressional members out of the 18 or 19. So
which is crazy.
Yeah, the Democrats have been doing this for many decades. We're not that hardcore on that as we should be. So that's happening, which means a lot of these new congressional members are coming in, which is going to be great. We need to get them elected. In Texas, this 26 is going to be one of the toughest elections we're going to face for many reasons, but primarily because Republicans are comfortable that president is in the office. And they're saying, oh yeah, the apathy is just through the roof. So they think, oh yeah, we're fine. Trump is in office. He's doing all this work. But the fact that we don't have a huge majority in the U.S. House, and if we lose a couple of seats, we're in trouble. So next 2 years of president's term will be decided by essentially Texas and a couple of other states who either put enough people in Congress so he won't be worried about impeachment on a weekly basis, actually do the work. Or,
they're doing it now.
Right, they're doing it now. I mean, but with the majority, we've been pushing back. But imagine if we lose the House. This is all we're going to see for 2 years, and we can't afford that. You can disagree with the president on certain issues. I do. So many Republicans do. But overall, you look at the nation. And can we afford to have 2 years of impeachment and the drama, the chaos, and not have governance on building economy that was in shambles from Biden and getting this illegal immigration under control? All of those things, there's so much work to do. And we can either be distracted by impeachments and all the other things, or we can actually do the work for American people. And that decision will come from the people, from Texas. If you don't show up, we're going to lose. That's very simple. I'm very, very confident that people will show up, but you never know, right? I mean, the midterms are usually bad for Republicans, and this one will be extra chaotic for us. So we got to raise money. We got to push the narrative. We've got to get people involved. And Iranian Americans and Indian Americans and any immigrant group owes this country more than anybody else to get involved. Absolutely. And do the right thing.
And so the message there is don't get too comfortable. We're at war and keep fighting.
Yes, sir.
So one last question. Who do you like in the presidential race in 2028?
It depends on the day. I go between Marco Rubio and JD Vance. I'm a huge fan of JD Vance, but I'll be honest with you, Marco Rubio has been just amazing.
Superstar, right?
Yeah. I don't know if you saw this video of him trying to fill in for Caroline
DJ?
a
Oh,
couple of
Caroline
days,
Levitt, yeah.
and the DJ is just very relatable to regular people, and I just love the way he handles himself. I love the way he shares his faith very openly, and JD is a great guy. I got a chance to meet him multiple times, and he's just very funny, down to earth, a real American dream story, right? So the great thing about all of this is we have a really good bench for
Right.
26. We can't go wrong with either one of them. So that's great. Democrats are going to have either Gavin Newsom or potentially James Talarico, people like that. James is going to lose the Senate seat here and then becomes the
Yes.
nominee for presidential. That's what he wants to do, and that's what.
He's another Beto. Like they keep bringing
Yeah,
Betos, and then the Betos get their butt kicked, and then they go further left, and then it's just a gay version of Beto. Like I'm like,
yeah,
Beto didn't work. Why would you make it even a worse Beto?
that's what they're doing. Yep.
And it's funny that you mentioned that on the Democratic side, they really don't have anyone. The one person that I actually know of, he was my zoning council when I was in Philly, is Josh Shapiro. He's actually a very, very sharp, smart guy. But the Democrats are such racists and such anti-Semites that they'll never run him. He's the only one that I know on the Democratic side that's actually smart, that I actually could potentially, you know, put up a
Yeah,
challenge to a Marco Rubio or J.D. Vance.
that's
But
right.
the Democrats are such racists, they will never allow Josh. Josh Shapiro is a superstar, and the Democrats are just too stupid to see that.
Yeah. Democrats, look at Democrats' bench. They will pick one person or other, like just to have the narrative, but overall, they're very racist. Um, the
I mean, look at
largest,
look at the dumb things that Gavin Newsom says. Oh, I relate to black people because I'm low SAT score. I mean, like, who says that?
yeah, yeah, the largest Republican Party in the country is the Texas Republican Party, and I'm sitting in the top of it. Uh, and it's they don't. When I ran, not a single person asked me about the race issue. They didn't bring it up. It was so strange because I thought that would have been a thing that I would have to explain. So I had like thoughts in my head like, hey, this is who I am. You like it, support. If not, it's okay. But nobody. And our convention is not very diverse. It's usually mom, grandmas and grandpas from all over Texas,
Small
rural
towns,
Texas,
yeah.
who probably never seen an Indian before. So, but they looked at the policies and they said, oh, we want that guy. And Democrats will never elect someone like me. It's weird because they talk about racism so much. They're the most racist group in
Most
America.
are racist, yes. And I just don't understand how Americans don't see how racist they are. Like the fact that you have somebody like Josh Shapiro who's a superstar, but you won't run him because you don't want to upset the pro-Palestine people just because he's
Yep.
Jewish. And you didn't even ask him for his view on Israel. You just assume because he's Jewish, because you're racist. Josh
Right.
Shapiro should be at the top of your ticket, but as Democrats, you're
They
so
won't do
racist,
it.
you won't do it.
They won't do it. Well, thank you for having me today,
Well,
brother.
God
This
bless
is
you.
wonderful.
It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and even though we grew up in the same areas, we didn't know each other, and look forward to working with you. And I have a very tough Herculean task to get a lot of Iranians, a lot of immigrants, registered to vote and show up at the midterms. And I'm not going to stop till everyone understands how important it is, because we're at the battlefront of the fight for Western civilization here in Texas. And
Yeah.
I told my California chapter, you guys used to be the bastion of freedom, the best Republican candidates, between Reagan and Nixon, all these people used to come from California. Now we've taken that, and now Texas is the battlefront. And it's so important in the battlefront that we continue this fight. And God bless you for all the work you do. I know I see you. One night I see you at Ken Paxton event. The next morning you're in Austin at the Board of Education. And I'm in the same places. And I know you're working really, really hard. And I think people see that. And God bless you. And thank you for what you do.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for all you do. And yeah, good luck to you. I'm with you. Let's work together and get as many people registered and to the polls as possible.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Take care.